how all these developments may affect Pyongyang's denuclearization process. But first, let's head to Devin Whiting at Arirang's News Center for a look at the day's headlines. Devin, what do you have for us?
Hi, Minji. Well, first, the South Korean envoys who recently went to North Korea and met with Kim Jong-un will be sent to China and Japan this week and next to explain the results of their meeting. The presidential office of Cheongwade said Friday that it'll send the director of the National Security Office, Chung Hee-yong, to Beijing this Saturday, where he's expected to meet with Yang Jiechi, a top official at China's Central Foreign Affairs Commission. The director of South Korea's National Intelligence Service, Seo Hoon, will go to Japan next Monday. President Moon Jae-in says he plans to make irretraceable progress in denuclearizing the Korean peninsula by the end of the year. He was speaking in an interview with a news outlet from Indonesia ahead of a state visit to South Korea by Indonesian President Joko Widodo. President Moon said he hopes to bring an official end to the Korean War by building trust with related countries. President Moon also promised that South Korea will put all its efforts into improving relations between Pyongyang and Washington. Meanwhile, North Korea appears to have dismantled a facility near Pyongyang used for assembling ICBMs. According to VOA on Friday, new satellite pictures show the facilities are no longer present in the northwestern city of Pyongsong. They had been seen as recently as August 17th. They may not be gone permanently, though. In two similar cases this year, the same type of facility was taken down, only to be rebuilt in a matter of days. Washington's newly appointed special envoy for North Korea will make his first diplomatic trip to South Korea next week. According to Seoul's foreign ministry, special representative for North Korea, Stephen Biegun, will be in Seoul from September 10th to the 12th. He'll meet with South Korea's foreign minister, Kang Kyung-hwa, as well as his South Korean counterpart, Lee Do-hoon, who'll brief him on the latest developments, including the results of the special envoy's trip to Pyongyang. The U.S. State Department says Biegun will later travel to Beijing and Tokyo to continue diplomatic efforts to achieve the final, fully verified denuclearization of North Korea. And another big meeting for the South Korean foreign minister next week. On Tuesday, she'll be meeting with her counterpart from Japan when they're both in the Vietnamese capital of Hanoi. According to Seoul's foreign ministry, they'll meet on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum on ASEAN, which will be held from September 11th to the 13th. In the meeting, Foreign Minister Kang is likely to share the results of the South Korean special delegation's visit to Pyongyang and discuss ways to cooperate with Japan to pursue North Korea's denuclearization. Now, Kim Jong-un has been pushing to develop North Korea's economy since he came to power several years ago, and as the regime prepares to celebrate the 70th anniversary of its foundation this Sunday, our Cha Sang-mi takes a look at how the North's economy is doing.
This upcoming Sunday, September 9th, is no ordinary day for North Korea. It's when Pyongyang celebrates the 70th anniversary of the founding of North Korea's regime with extravagant military parades and acrobatic performances. While much is known about the North's weaponry and nuclear programs, not much has been revealed about its economic conditions. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has stepped up his push for economic development this year, making appearances on the global stage through summits with Seoul and Washington. These red dots on the map here are, according to a report from CSIS, are the locations of markets across the North, at least 436 officially sanctioned markets altogether. There have been major economic transitions since the young Kim came to power. Once reliant on a centrally planned economy, now the regime is turning a blind eye to the transition to a semi-legal market economy, yet still heavily regulated. People's reliance on the markets depends on whether they live in a rural or urban area.
There's a geographic difference to this, but many North Korean people living along the border with China, they depend on the market for their entire livelihood, whereas people in Pyongyang, the capital city of North Korea, which is apparently well supplied with goods, they don't depend on the market so much.
In fact, a poll conducted by the Institute for Peace and Unification Studies on some 150 defectors to the South says that 95% of them had purchased daily necessities from such markets in their neighborhood.
Any North Korean can sell private and imported goods. There is at least one person in a household who sells things at these markets. It's a must, considering this is the only way they can sustain themselves.
Kang Mi-jin, a North Korean defector who works as a reporter at the Seoul-based daily NK online newspaper, says that these markets sell everything, from beans to cosmetics. As for the financial market, Kang says it is thriving for a select few.
There are no national loans, but a lot of private moneylenders. A group of 3 or 4 women wandering around in beautiful clothes and bags are those who earn money from lending. They're quite powerful, as they can even control the exchange rate through their talks.
Kang says that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is likely to highlight the economic achievements of his regime in his Foundation Day speech. How North Korean-made food products outperform Chinese products, how more shoes and socks are being made in the North, as well as how North Korea's IT sector is thriving. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
The Bank of Korea has released its data on trends in the global financial market for August. Fears related to the escalating U.S.-China trade conflict have led to a stronger dollar and caused volatility in emerging markets, but the South Korean market has remained stable. The central bank said Friday that bond yields in Turkey almost doubled as the lira plummeted against the dollar. Stocks tumbled there and in Brazil, which faces its own currency crisis. But the exchange rate between the Korean won and the dollar saw no change. In fact, it was less volatile in August compared to July. And foreigners increased their buying of Korean stocks and bonds. Now, a bit of culture for you here in the Korean capital. Gyeongbokgung Palace is now open at night. It's offering a Starlight tour that includes a royal meal and Korean traditional music. Kim Da-mi takes us there.
The sun's gone down, but Gyeongbokgung Palace in central Seoul stays brightly lit past sunset. The Starlight tour begins as a court lady known as Jaein welcomes visitors upon King Sejong's special request to serve the guest for the night. The first stop of the tour is Sojubang, the royal kitchen. Here, visitors taste 도숙술화상, a modern reinterpretation of the king's meal made up of 12 side dishes, from abalone dumplings to bamboo shoe pancakes.
Eating this royal meal and watching the performances at the palace make me feel like a king.
Traditional Korean musical performances entertain the guests and give them a chance to feel what the palace was like 600 years ago. After being fed like royalty, the visitors use Korean traditional lanterns called 청사초롱 to explore the palace. Sand art at Gyeotdaejeon Hall portrays the love story between King Sejong and Queen Sohyun. Located on a peaceful pond, Gyeonghwaero Pavilion was once used for entertaining foreign guests and even now still captures visitors' attention. If you can't get tickets for the Starlight tour, you can still enjoy the palace at night starting from September 16th. And if you're wearing hanbok, Korea's traditional clothing, then you can also get in for free. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines.
The on and off bromance between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is back on track, with Trump thanking Kim for making respectful remarks about the U.S. president. But Trump's top diplomat remains cautious, saying a lot of work remains to be done. Park Hee-jun has the details.
U.S. President Donald Trump has thanked North Korean leader Kim Jong-un for his unwavering faith in him. Tweeting a thank you to Kim on Thursday, President Trump said that despite bumps in the road, they will, quote, get it done together, signaling there could be further negotiations between the two sides. The tweet came after the North Korean leader reaffirmed his commitment to completely denuclearize the Korean peninsula. South Korean National Security Advisor Chung Eui-yong revealed after meeting Kim in Pyongyang that Kim expressed unchanged faith in the U.S. president and that he planned to denuclearize within Trump's first term in office, which ends in January 2021. But while President Trump praised Kim, his Secretary of State took a harder line. During his trip to India, Mike Pompeo emphasized that there's still a lot of work to be done.
it is the case that there is still an enormous amount of work to do. We haven't had any nuclear tests. We haven't had any missile tests, which we consider a good thing. But the work of convincing Chairman Kim to make the strategic shift that we've talked about for a brighter future for the people of North Korea continues.
Pointing out that North Korea is the only country with commitments under UN Security Council resolutions, Pompeo added the U.S. will continue efforts to enforce them to ensure North Korea delivers on the promises it made at the Singapore summit in June. Attention now turns to how the indirect dialogue will affect the denuclearization process and whether there will be a breakthrough in the apparently stalled negotiations after President Trump canceled Pompeo's trip to Pyongyang last month. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
And to dissect the mixed responses coming from the U.S. and other developments that may affect North Korea's denuclearization, Professor Kim Han-kwon from the Korea National Diplomatic Academy joins us in the studio. Professor Kim, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon.
So the U.S. was quick to give a response to the South Korean delegation's visit to Pyongyang. President Donald Trump thanked North Korean leader Kim Jong-un for having trusted him and said they can work around this together. But Secretary of State Mike Pompeo struck a heavier tone, saying a lot needs to be done. What do you make of these two quite different tones?
I think it is a very natural thing that President Trump has some positive answers to the Chairman Kim, but at the same time, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, as a top negotiator of the U.S. side, has to very carefully and cautiously approach and understand and reading the message from the North. For example, President Trump must protect his political achievement, that is June 12th summit with Chairman Kim Jong-un, and he said he made a good result from the summit, and he said I think he'd better say that Chairman Kim Jong-un is a very smart guy who is thinking of denuclearization, and he has maintained good relationship with Kim Jong-un. So he wants to show up his political achievement inside or outside of the United States. But as I talked, that Secretary Pompeo, he already visited 3 times to Pyongyang, but he could not make enough tangible results from his visits. So at this moment, he has to double check every single factors of the process of denuclearization of the North Korea. So I think it is natural things that President Trump and Mike Pompeo has different ideas on the North Korea's reactions.
South Korea's presidential secretary advisor Chung Eui-yong also shared the outcome of his recent visit to Pyongyang with his U.S. counterpart John Bolton. Now, the two agreed to stay in touch ahead of the Inter-Korean summit, which is slated for about 2 weeks' time, and South Korean President Moon Jae-in's attendance to the UN General Assembly. Do you see this as a way for Seoul and Washington to step up their alliance?
I think so, yes, it is, and it should be. And according to the schedule, President Moon Jae-in will visit Pyongyang between 18th and 20th of September. Then he will also visit UN General Assembly in end of September. At that time, he has a chance to directly talk with Kim Jong-un, and then also has a chance to talk with President Trump. So probably President Moon Jae-in take a good role of facilitator or intermediator between the North and the United States. So at this moment, of course, we have a very sincere and straightforward talk with Pyongyang, but at the same time, based on alliance relations, we have a very the sincere and credible discussions with the U.S. side too.
So there's this form of indirect dialogue going on. The U.S. Special Envoy on North Korea, Stephen Biegun, is also due in South Korea next week to meet with officials. A North Korea issue is likely to top the agenda. It will come just about a week ahead of the planned inter-Korean summit. What kind of message do you think he will be bringing on behalf of President Trump?
Okay, probably Mr. Biegun will deliver some important agenda that can be discussed on inter-Korean summits. At the same time, Mr. Biegun was just appointed as a new special representative for North Korea over the U.S. side. So he wants to talk with his counterpart of South Korea. His counterpart is Lee Do-hun as a special representative for Korean Peninsula peace and security affairs. But at the same time, he has, I think he will meet Minister of Foreign Affairs, Kang Kyung-hwa, and probably they are trying to adjust the core agenda for the inter-Korean summits. Is coming up next week, in the coming up 18th, between 18th and 20th of September.
So he's new on the job, so there will be some time to get to know each other.
Right.
Now on Sunday, North Korea will be celebrating its 70th anniversary of its founding. Now it's a big day for Pyongyang, and reports say a lot of effort is being put into the preparation for the celebration. Could you elaborate on the significance of this day for viewers who may not be so familiar?
Okay, the North has some of important national holidays. Among them, 4 is the most important. One is they called 태양정, the day of the sun, which is the birthday of Kim Il-sung. It is on April 15th. And second is the day of the shining star, in Korean, 광명성절. It is the birthday of Kim Jong-il, is February 16th. The third one is Party Foundation Day, the Korean Workers' Party. It is October 10th. And the fourth one is, you just mentioned that the day of the foundation of the Republic, the People's Republic of Korea. It is DPRK, and it means the North Korea. So September 9th anniversary is one of the important events for North Korean political schedules.
So the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has attended the celebration marking the regime's foundation just once back in 2013. Do you reckon he's going to make a visit this time around?
This time, it is my hunch. It is very possible because 2 important foreign guests attended to the event. One is from China. The other one is from Russia. Of course, many other important persons visit Pyongyang to commemorate the event. But Lee Jae-soo is the number 3 person of CPC, the Communist Party of China, and he's a very close very close person to President Xi Jinping. So probably Kim Jong-un and Lee Jae-soo could discuss very important issues between the 2 countries. At the same time, from Russia, Valentino Matvienko, she is the chairperson of the Federation Council of Russia. She is also a very close friend of President Putin. So from the North Korean perspective, Kim Jong-un can talk with China guest, indirectly talk with President Xi Jinping. The same thing apply for the Russian case. He can talk with the chairwoman, then chairwoman directly can deliver Kim Jong-un's message to the President Putin. So I think it is very possible to attend.
So there is speculation whether these high-level delegations will be able to meet with North Korean leader. Staying with China, there were speculation that Chinese President Xi Jinping himself could attend the ceremony, but it's been changed to his right-hand man, like you said, Lee Jae-soo, who is the chairman of China's National People's Congress. Now, there's been a lot of interpretation about this. What do you make of it?
In my understanding, the Chinese government and Chinese leader of CPC think of two important factors at once. One is US factors and the other one is North Korean factors. First of all, China has to continue the strategic competition with the US. And at the same time, the North Korea is a very important strategic partner when the China continued to dealing with many important issues with strategic issues with the US. But the problem is the US government, more specifically President Trump, pointed out China is a kind of obstacles under the process of the denuclearization of the peninsula process. So the Chinese government has to find very strategic position between North Korea, who want to cooperate with China, and the other one is US, who want to point it out as obstacles on the process. So the North Korea, the Chinese government, in my understanding, initially President Xi Jinping could possibly visit Pyongyang, but after they think of the relations with the US, probably Li Jiansu, who is not the president of the China, but he's a very important person, one of the top leaders at the same time, who can deliver directly Kim Jong-un's message to President Xi Jinping. So Li Jiansu is a very proper person from China's perspective to send as a special envoy to Pyongyang.
The presidential office announced earlier that the presidential security advisor Chung Eui-yong will be heading to China, and Seo-hoon, the NIS, the spy agency chief, will be heading to Japan to explain the outcome of their visit. Do you expect what kind of response are you expecting from China on this part?
First of all, Special Envoy Chung Eui-yong would explain what happened in Pyongyang and what are the messages from the North. And probably there will be a good discussion between leaders of China and Special Envoy Chung. So they could readjust the different perspective toward the North. But at the same time, the Chinese government will very strictly question and asking for the South Korea's position on what Kim Jong-un said, that the declaration of the Korean War, end of Korean War, and the withdrawal of US troops on the South Korean territory are different issues. That means South Korea, from the US perspective, it is a very good news, a very good message from the North. But on the other hand, the Chinese government, who want to reduce military and security influence over the Korean peninsula of US military security influence over the Korean peninsula, those Kim Jong-un's message strictly could harm Chinese strategic interest on the Korean peninsula. So the Chinese government will very strictly ask in detail about these issues and what is they want to seek for or search for, what is the real intention of Kim Jong-un when he talked about the declaration and withdrawal, very different issues.
Now, moving back to the upcoming summit. So like back in April during the first inter-Korean summit between Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un, South Korea has a heavy burden on its shoulders in that it will have to pave the way for a breakthrough in North Korea-US denuke talks. But with North Korea's ties with China seemingly warming up and with the US a little bit bumpy, how do you see things playing out and what should Seoul be doing at this point?
In my understanding, South Korea should continue its role as an intermediator or facilitator between North Korea and the United States. At the moment, the three countries more focusing on the when the three countries sign up the declaration of the end of the Korean War, and what will be the precondition for the sign up of the declaration. Right now, in my understanding, the United States asking the North Korea to hand over the list of nuclear weapons and facilities. But from the North Korean perspective, if they can hand over this list, after that, then the United States changed their mind. Probably North Korea has no other bargaining chip on their hands under the process of the denuclearization of the peninsula. So North Korea asked the declaration first, then they will continue to hand over list. But the United States hand over list first, then they will sign up the declaration. So South Korean government should persuade Pyongyang and Washington it could happen simultaneously together. So sign up and the handover list could happen on a day in the near future. So South Korean government complete their policy goal to sign up the declaration within this year.
So Seoul will have to help the two get along and make some coordination in that perspective. Right. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of our show. Thanks for watching and see you again soon. Goodbye.
The 21st Inter-Korean family reunion came to an end with no promise of a future meetup. What are the structural problems of these reunions?